Okay, welcome back to the program. We're having a fantastic discussion right now, the role and function of literary fiction and what it actually means, how it shapes a person, an individual, society as well, what are the changes that all come along. Dr. Munaza, tell me, how important are literary discussions?
For public awareness.
Yes, and for...
I think before the break we were talking about this, that I was referring to the 17th century, that when, what do we mean by public sphere? That when the general common citizens of any country or any society, do they participate in the political decision making? Are they aware what is happening on the upper classes of the society? Who is taking the decision? What laws are being formulated?
Right.
And you see, so generally public was not aware of that, public was kept away from that, and all the decision making, whether it's a political, social, economic, it was in the hands of monarchy and the people who are the elite class.
Right.
But then what happened with the print culture, when people started publishing some small literary pieces, even poetry and other literary text, people used to gather at different, you see, personal drawing rooms, homes, or they could find some coffee house or tea shop. They would sit, and discussion was basically based on the literary text. But then the literary critical discussion would take them to the general social, political situation in the country, because the stories, the context of the story and the setting of the story is always the society in which we live. So, in this way people were given certain critical awareness of their society. Similarly, in 18th century, the rise of novel is because of the rise of the middle classes, the working classes in urban Europe or England, when they started you see, sitting in the coffee houses and tea shops, they used to read novels, and that is the age which is say that it's about the rise of the novel, because the middle classes, they came to the urban spaces and they participated, started participating in the general social or public spheres, and their decisions were impacting the political decision. You see, I hope you remember Dickens' novel in the Victorian age about the child labor, the class segregation, and then the women issues and all that, and the certain reform laws were passed during the Queen Victoria's age because of the public awareness which was given to people in those coffee houses. That was one of the important factors.
Absolutely, because once you're talking about something, you've brought it to the forefront and people are discussing it.
People
That's
are sitting
when it's making
in small
a
groups
difference.
and they are discussing it.
Yeah.
So, in this way I am happy to see in Pakistan we have recently started this culture as well. I would like to mention your group as well, Art and Literature Guild. People sit together and the discussion is actually literary discussion. We take some poems, some story and something, people come up with that, but you see, our discussion is not confined to that text.
True.
We just discuss the story and then we move beyond the story.
Yeah.
What is Pakistan, society, issues, and Pakistan in international context.
And the fantastic thing about that group is that it has now evolved into other subgroups as well. Where
Yes.
we were thinking, okay, we can do this, okay, we need to plant trees, we need to do this, we need to do that, because you have like-minded people coming in together.
These were the issues which actually emerged during our literary discussions.
Yeah.
Yes, Pakistan is suffering environmental crisis, climate change. Why not why can't we participate in tree plantation campaign?
Right.
If there is a shortage of water, how can we contribute there? So, from literary discussions, the stories, from the stories we are moving to the practical, because in this way social activism is being linked with that, and this is a very important impact. You see, I said, I told you a sentence which was a very powerful statement, that literary culture and the social transformation, there is a connection between them, and the stories do impact our individual life as well as our general social life.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, another very important, as we've discussed the power of it, the power of literature as well. How can we use, how can we get the good quality literature across to people to promote a society where we have more acceptance, tolerance, regard for one another, empathy? Because these are, again, all those things that you can find in good literature.
You can always use literature as a tool to inculcate the values at individual as well as at the social level. Let me mention Pakistani writings, fictional writings. I would confine my discussion only to the Anglophone writing, because I'm not much in touch with the Urdu writings, though I have read. If you go to Pakistani literature in English in 1947, it was a marginalized genre.
Yeah.
But over the last 2 to 3 decades, it has grown into a very dynamic body of writings in the last 2 and 3 decades. And particularly our fictional writings, they have made a very strong presence on in Pakistan as well
And
as
abroad,
our global scene.
Yeah.
And this younger generations of writing, they are doing wonderful. And the answer of your question is in the fictional text which these writers are producing. I would love to mention Kamila Shamsi, Uzma Aslam Khan, Mohsin Hamid, Muhammad Hanif, and so many other, Nadeem Aslam. They, you see, if you start reading their novel, I won't mention 1 novel or 2 novel or 3 novel. If you start reading their stories are actually based on the certain critical and very crucial issues which Pakistan is facing. You see, contemporary Pakistan is facing.
Yeah.
Internal issues as well as Pakistan's position in transnational world or Pakistan's position
And
in the international
the projection of Pakistan.
You see, if you, for example, if you are reading Our Lady of Alice Bhatti, he has drawn your attention to the Christian minorities living in Karachi. That is one theme. The secondly, the poor condition of the government hospitals in the big urban centers, the economic class segregations, and then the oppression of the women, particularly the oppression which goes to many levels if the woman belongs to a marginalized racial ethnic class as well as a marginalized economic class like that Christian nurse. So these are the issues of Pakistan, and when we are reading a story, we are actually giving to our young readers in the universities and everywhere, and overall Pakistan, whosoever this novel about this. Similarly, when I was reading Kamila Shamsi's Broken Verses, it's such a wonderful depiction in a fictional text about a very powerful women's movement of 1980s. You see, the movement which was launched against Zia's regime and all that, oppression against the movement, Hudud Ordinance, the role of the women activists and the workers. The story is based on that. You see, the main character is that woman activist, a feminist in the Pakistan society, and a very, very bad consequences which she faces because of her struggle for the emancipation.
Because the chains are actually in the mind.
Yes.
The chains are in the mind, and it's that breaking of that chain there that will physically impart to you with that strength. To actually do something.
So these novels, they do not take us to another world, which is different from us, but the world in which we are living, and how, in what subtle way, in what a skillful way, they are drawing our attention to our very crucial issues. Recently, her latest novel, which has actually, that's our pride. She is the first Pakistani woman who has won Women's Award, Fiction Award in the UK. Kamila
this was
Shamsi.
recently as
Recently,
well.
her new novel Home Fire. Home Fire is again Pakistan in international context. The issue of extremism, issue of religious fundamentalism, the Pakistani immigrant families and the children whose parents have been involved in terrorism, the frustration and the trauma which that younger generation is going on. So responsibilities to the state and responsibility to your religious affiliation, personal affiliations and personal relationship and responsibility to the states. You see, in a very subtle way, she has put that complicated situation in front of us, the Pakistanis and the Pakistani who are living in Britain. I think they are all, they must be concerned with that, what is happening, and it is something which is helping us to see the reality from another's point of view. Whatever perhaps we have been thinking, we have to change and have alternative mindset about the issue.
That's a huge cultural integration, isn't it? Breaking down those barriers, because that's also going on. When we read something about a country that we've only heard about in the news, and unfortunately, you know, negative publicity, and then you actually get to know the fabric of society, what's going on, how people think, why things are moving in a certain direction, and what people are doing to stop it. You know, that makes perspective
because
so
you
much
read
more
the story
clearer.
and you, again, as we have been discussing, we start discussing those Pakistan's geopolitical
Yeah.
situation. We start discussing Pakistan's international relationship. We
Yeah.
start discussing 9/11 again, and the local conflict which we have inside our country.
Okay, there's another thing. Today's world, right? We've got social media. We've got so much coming our way. It's ironic that we have to be very careful about, not being misinformed.
Yeah,
That's another thing as well.
very important. Yeah,
And again, there's no substitute for a book,
no substitute.
because you'll come across articles, you'll come across lots of things that have been written, but how many things are authentic? How do we, as you said, it is the gathering of people when we're talking about literature, and then the sort of, the branches that grow from there, and where things lead to, that is most important.
Yeah.
So how do we get people to think, get thinking back to these days? We see so many discussions on politics where, unfortunately, they usually end badly, with people not being able to agree to disagree. And I think literature does that for you, doesn't it? It opens your mind, you
because
agree to disagree.
Yeah, when a fictional text is written and it is handed over to the public, then it becomes a public document. So if the information is not authentic, you see, information is wrong which is given to them.
And they do a lot of research.
But it's not a private reading actually.
Yeah.
It's a document, public document. As you said, people will sit together, maybe in the university classrooms, or maybe the friends, literary circles, in the coffee houses, in the personal drawing rooms, and many people will discuss the same text, and then they will point out what's wrong, what is wrong, which is being represented, and what is authentic.
Yeah.
And in this way, the information can be filtered out.
Right.
I think, and that is the beauty of the fiction, because
Yeah.
we cannot take a fictional text as a text for gaining factual information. It's not fact. It's fiction.
Yeah.
It has always advantage. If he or she has written something which we say, no, this is wrong information, but she has this advantage of being a fiction writer. So, but how much that fictional representation is authentic in the context of the reality which we are living, this would be discussed in our critical discussion circles. And I think this is the role of literature, not to take whatever is written as it is, but rather discuss it. As it stimulates your discussion. It gives you something to explore more.
It's
to
just
think
like
more.
your perception of art,
Yes,
or a poem,
like any other art.
It's your
You may
perception.
interpret it
the
way you like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, really, really important here. The importance of getting back to books and literature and reading and everything. How do we get people to be interested in a book? How do you get them? How do you break that barrier? Because you'll find the people who are interested, who are book lovers, that they will read no matter what.
Yes, no matter what.
How do you include all the other people who may be a bit wary, or they're not understanding exactly what they're missing?
I think generally in Pakistan we lack that vibrant book reading culture. It's a cultural thing, I think.
Yeah.
And we need efforts, not only the way we make these literary groups and discussions, but actually I think at the children who are at home, we must develop a habit of reading the book.
So true.
It's so true.
And they will develop it
Without
when
that, we cannot change the culture.
and they will only develop it when they see the parents reading.
Yes.
It's not enough to just say, okay, it's story time, come on, let's read this. No, you have to make that connection, because they're
Yes.
going to...
You read in front of them, you have books at home and different people are reading, and you make them to sit at certain times, and just for the sake of the reading the book. I think we have to start this at home with our young children.
Yeah.
And if we give this habit of reading to them, I think that is a hope for changing this
That's
reading
so true.
culture
That's
in
so
our
true.
country.
And then, again, instead of focusing on fixing adults, work where you need it
Yes.
most, the children. You need to invest your time and energy and everything there. Okay, we have this, we have a dilemma where we think that, okay, here we have a child, school-going age, and we will drive ourselves frantic. You know, what school is now he or she going to go to, and what's happening there, what are they being taught, what's the curriculum? Okay, child enters school, then you are obsessed with, you know, generally speaking, what position are they taking? I mean, a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's awful to put them under that pressure. And the parents are also, you know, becoming obsessive. And the child thinks, okay, so in life...
It's a negative thing which we are
exactly.
doing.
You're harming their creativity because they're stuck. They're not getting time to read for pleasure. They're not getting time to, you know, enjoy that time of their life. It's just, sometimes it seems crazy. So you're spending all that time there. The most important thing, as you mentioned as well, and we had an expert on one of our programs who said that up to the age of 7, a child has downloaded all the information that they're going to use in life. So that's the first 7 years that are so crucial.
Very
then
crucial.
for the rest of their life, they are going to use 95% of their subconscious mind.
You see, when you trace the Freudian psychology and the stages of the development of a child, he has assigned great importance to the first 6 to 7 years in the early period of our growth, because either the formation of the personality, the basic formation is done at that time. So we have to be very careful when we are raising children, but we don't pay attention to it as you said. We are more concerned to so many other things, disciplining the child, getting big rewards for the child and the prizes for the child, rather than the formation of his mind and the cognition. You see what Wordsworth said, child is father of man. What does it mean actually? Child is father of man mean whatever the personality you make in the first few formative years, early childhood, he will have the same personality and the same personhood when he'll grow up. You cannot change the personhood. If you want a child to develop with a certain personality, you have to do the work during the first few years of his life.
So true.
And I think the stories can be a very good source. They can be instrumental. Let us teach them stories about the values, about the civic. We sometimes we teach them good and bad, you see, achai and burai. But along with that, you see what our society lacks, the civic sense and civic values. We can teach them civic values. We can teach them so many things during the childhood through the stories, and they are the best way of you see, making their cognitive patterns, which can actually develop into better thinking mind when they grow up.
Very true. We have lots of mothers saying, you know, our child is just so hyperactive and they don't sit down. I think that giving them a book is a fantastic way.
They have to sit and read first, and then make him. You see, I sit with my younger son. I sit with him. I read my books and I give him his books to read. Sometimes I read his book with him. If I am not reading, he can see they are very smart.
And that's why it's making the difference to him.
It's making a difference.
Because he's seeing his mother. Okay, so this is important what she's doing. She takes out this much time in a day to sit down seriously and read.
Yes,
so
she's reading, she's writing.
I have to do this too. That's fantastic. So before we go reaching the end of the program, your message to viewers who are watching today, and you know, sort of, what would you say to them?
I think the last thing which we are just discussing, that we should read stories, and we should give this habit to our children to read stories, because developing the habit of reading stories in our children can make a lot of difference in our culture and society, because the stories are pleasure, the stories are entertainment, and through entertainment and through pleasure, in a very subtle way, we can actually inculcate certain moral, ethical as well as civic values in our children, and these children are our hope for a better future, for a better Pakistan, with a good sense of responsibility, civic responsibility, social awareness, critical awareness about the issues, and most and the best of all, which I plead for, a thinking head.
I think
A thinking head.
That is a completely different program, Dr. Munaza, and we will definitely call you back for that one as well, the critical thinking.
Thank
we will
you so
definitely
much.
have
I
a
would
program
love to
on
talk about that.
That would be fantastic.
Okay.
Thank you so much for being such a fantastic guest.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, so that brings us to the end of today's program, a fantastic discussion that we had with Dr. Munaza. You know, all those things that we do take for granted, there is a treasure chest out there waiting to be opened. It's in the form of a book, yes. And so you, yourself, your children, make sure that, you know, you indulge yourself in this healthy activity, mind, body and soul. It will make such a difference. And your children will also learn from you. And it's, as, you know, Dr. Munaza said, a thinking head. I mean, that is the beginning of everything. And that's what you want to do. So until next week, stay happy. Bye-bye.